Good evening. My name is James, and today we will be reviewing the new House of X and Powers of X storyline, hopefully you can see it here in the camera, by Jonathan Hickman. And this story was recently released by Marvel, and what I have here in my hand, this is the collected edition. You can see how thick it is. This contains all the issues from the House of X and Powers of X storylines, so altogether there were 12 issues. There were 6 in House of X and 6 issues in Powers of X. And this story helped relaunch a reboot, essentially, for the X-Men currently in Marvel Comics. So today I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on this series, what I liked and disliked about it. So let's dive in. First and foremost, I highly recommend this story. It was a fresh take on the X-Men mythos. At first, I was a little bit taken aback because it's a lot different than most Marvel comics. It's more sophisticated, definitely more mature. I'm not saying stories aren't mature nowadays. It's what I mean by that is essentially they put a lot of detail into the intricacies of this storyline. So let me just tell you what the basic plot was. It starts off with mutants hosting ambassadors from different countries on this new mutant island. And this island is home to all the mutants on Earth. Any mutant has residency on this new island. And it's kind of like a safe haven for mutants on Earth. And Professor X and Magneto are the leaders of this new island. And then it goes back and forth. The story later goes back and forth through time. There's the main storyline that takes place in essentially the present. Another storyline that takes place in 10 years. Another one that's in 100 years, I believe. And another one that's in 1,000 years. So I don't want to spoil it for you, so I'm just going to give you a basic synopsis. Essentially, the big takeaway from this storyline is the character of Moira has the mutant ability of reincarnation. So she's lived various lives throughout history, and with each life, she tries to improve upon what she failed during the last life, and she's constantly tried to make progress towards mutant relations. And eventually she teams up with Charles Xavier, and she's lived through most of the events that have happened so far in Marvel Comics, such as the Phoenix Saga, the X-Men versus Avengers storyline, and she realizes that the current road that Charles Xavier is taking towards establishing human and mutant relations, it doesn't work. Eventually it ends in failure. So she proposes something different, and that culminates in establishing a new country for mutants where they're the sole residents. I don't want to spoil it, but former villains of the X-Men become allies in this new storyline, which was something I really appreciated. Trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to add. That's the main takeaway. A few things that I didn't like about it. Well, it starts off with Charles Xavier and Magneto as allies. I know they're friends throughout the comics. They've always maintained rapport, but they've been on opposite sides at times. In this, they're definitely on the same side. So when I first started, I thought, did I miss something? But that's just how it starts off. I don't believe there's anything that led up to this. There may have been, but nothing that's required reading. There's also these, I don't want to call them interruptions, but these breaks throughout the story. Some may find them, some may appreciate them, but let me show you an example. Throughout the story, you'll have moments where Jonathan Hickman will have these pages devoted to just text. They look something like this. They provide a little bit more backstory on the events that are happening in the story, such as basically things that it would take too long to put in the comics themselves. I guess because it would interrupt the flow. So they have these side pages devoted to further explanation, and sometimes they just seem a bit unnecessary. What else would I have preferred differently about the story? The artwork was really good. I don't really have any complaints about the artwork. In terms of plot, it was really interesting. I would have preferred to see more of the X-Men characters, but currently, I guess since this was leading into a reboot, most of those characters are introduced in current comic issues. Like now you have the new X-Men series, Fallen Angels, Marauders, Excalibur, New Mutants, X-Force, and all of those new storylines that started in October of 2019. I believe they're the product of the events in this book. So, for example, Colossus wasn't in this story, but he shows up later in, I believe, X-Force #1. And the only real classic X-Men that appear in this storyline are, of course, Magneto and Charles Xavier. And you have Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Storm. But beyond that, you don't see a lot of the other familiar faces from X-Men, which I would have liked to have seen more of. Beast, he appears as well. I forgot to include him. And Emma Frost, if I didn't say her. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add. For the most part, I enjoyed it. I highly recommend you read it, especially the collected edition, because it's in the required reading order. If you get the individual issues, you'd have to get both sets and read them simultaneously in order to get the full story. The collected edition may be a bit more expensive, but you could probably find it for a pretty good deal on eBay or Amazon. Even your local comic shop might excuse me, provide you some sort of deal. Beyond that, I believe that's everything I wanted to say. That'll be the end of this video. So once again, this was my review on the House of X and Powers of X storyline. We get to see the whole cover there, by Jonathan Hickman for Marvel Comics. I hope you enjoyed it, and perhaps I gave you something to look forward to. Once again, have a good day, and I will see you later.